Okay, folks, this is kind of a belated response to a video that Matt Williamson made. Um, I saw the video, kind of laughed it off, and I've made some comments here and there, including just a new one that I put responding to somebody in the comment section below that video. But I don't know how long it's been, a couple of weeks maybe since the video was up, but I think I want to make a response after thinking about this again. Watching Matt's video, first of all, I'm going to give the guy credit where credit's due. Very good videos, very thought provoking. I always say that. Um, really enjoyed his Pete Best video, is one of the ones that stands out in my mind. So I give the man credit. And I always appreciate when somebody's not being a sycophant and not towing the popular line and is not shilling for the Beatles. That's one thing anybody who watches me regularly knows I don't do. I do not just say, oh, this is great, that's great, this is great. I come down on the Beatles remixes a lot. I'll criticize John, Paul, George, or Ringo if I don't like something. Now, the topic here, if you don't know, is the song Now and Then. Whether it's the song and or the video, but we'll just go by the song. If you don't know, for the record here officially in this video, I did not like John Lennon's demo. I thought the John Lennon demo was unfinished, wasn't really that appealing. The words weren't great. And I think Matt and I agree on this. I didn't think that had any real potential, that song, and obviously John never went back to it. Before he died, but that's neither here nor there now, because while I didn't like that demo at all, I really like the song Now and Then. Okay, I liked it when I first heard it. I didn't think they could actually make a silk purse from a sow's ear, or whatever the saying is, with that. But I was really pleasantly surprised because I don't know. In breaking it down a little bit, omitting the middle eight from John's song, and enhancing the vocals, and also, of course, having Paul and Ringo participate and add new parts to it and things, and the production value, the strings, taking some harmonies from Because, and maybe, I don't know, maybe another song or two, and kind of using them in the background, but not overly obvious. You know what I mean? You can tell that it's Because, for example, if you're looking for it, but not exactly. It doesn't hit you in the face that they took a direct sample from it. It works within the song. I love Paul's tribute to George. He does on the slide. Love that guitar solo. It's a very bittersweet song, and I love it. But sticking with the video, okay, Matt gave us all the reasons why he did not like the video. And as I said, more power to him, to anybody that is willing to go out there and say what they feel if it rubs against the grain. That's what I like people to do. I do it. But we disagree on this particular song. I thought they really did a masterful job of it, and it touched me immediately. And when I saw the video where you see them have the old George and the old John come back, and all the footage and everything, drove it home even more. So I like the song. I love the video. And but the thing about his video, Matt's video, was that he was kind of saying that a lot of people who made videos crying and saying how much how emotional they were and stuff like this, that they were feigning crocodile tears. And I think that's unfair, because you don't really know. Some of them maybe, but I think mostly it's not too hard to turn a camera on and say, okay, now I'm going to listen to the song, let's go. And then if you really do get emotional, you get emotional. If you don't, you don't. I think it's unfair to think that most of the people in there, or let alone all of them, were faking crocodile tears, or trying to like kiss up to the Beatles or stuff like that. I was emotionally touched. I didn't bawl like a baby. I did get welled up with tears the first time that I saw the video. So the video actually got me going more than anything. But then there's a question of, which I want to take issue with, other people. He named some other people. I won't, in his video. In his video, he was like showing clips from different videos, and he showed someone that said, and I know it's kind of, it's Andy, my friend Andy from Two Legs, and he said basically, if you don't, like this, if you don't have emotional by this song, you have no emotional heart. You have no emotional heart if you don't like it. Well, I think that's just I don't know, his way of talking. I kind of talk like that. He was trying to convey how touched he was by this or something. But yeah, that's not true. Also, of course, not everybody who doesn't love this song to death or who doesn't cry to tears doesn't mean they have no emotion or no heart, right? So I get that part. That was a little bit much, but I know I have a hard time imagining how anybody who could not be affected by it. But then Matt Williamson went on to talk about whether or not the song is canon or not. Is this the Beatles or is it canon? And I think at one part in his video, Matt said, "Well, the only people who can describe and say, describe's not the real best word. The only ones who can verify that these are canon Beatles songs would be the artists themselves." Well, if the artists themselves are the ones who get to say, and as Matt said, not me, not you, not Matt, not anybody out there, it's the artist that decides if it's canon. Well, the Beatles did that. Even when George was still alive, I mean, he obviously, you know, sent his best wishes and regards for it being the Beatles for Free as a Bird and Real Love. Now, George didn't really like Now and Then. That's why it never got done. But in all fairness, I didn't like the demo either. I don't blame George. I didn't like the demo either. But do we know that George wouldn't have loved this new song? We don't know. I think George would have liked this. And I think Olivia, his wife, and his son Danny obviously thought so too, because they actually gave George's blessing on this. The Harrisons speak for George, and the Lennon estate speaks for John. So, folks, and Matt in particular, it is a Beatles song. Why is it a Beatles song? For the very reason that Matt Williamson said. We don't get to decide whether it's a Beatles song or not. The artist, or those representing the artist now, the Harrisons and the Lennons, they get to decide, yes, this is a Beatles song. We're going to put this out as the Beatles. We're going to work on this as the Beatles, and our voices on here. We're even going to take a Beatles harmony, an old Beatles harmony from '69, and put that on the record too. It's the Beatles. They decided it's part of the canon. They put it on the end of the Red and the Blue album. The Blue album, 67 to 70, now has Now and Then at the end. So it is, in fact, canon. And the last thing I want to talk about is I noticed that Matt also said, and again, I'm paraphrasing a lot of this, so apologies if it's not 100% on, but I think I got the gist of it. He was saying that, well, if Andy is trying to say that if you have no emotion, you can't appreciate the song. Well, having emotions to a song, and this is kind of paraphrasing, having an emotional feeling to a song doesn't make it a good song. Well, I don't agree with that either. That's a matter of subjectivity. And then he said, because I think a song is all subjective, whether it's good or not. A song is not something that has to be analyzed. You don't analyze it and dissect it and say, well, you got this guitar isn't good and this production is bad and maybe the drum should have been up high. This is not a good song on a technical level. Baloney. A good song is a good song if it touches you. If a song touches you one way or another, it's a good song. If you really feel good listening to a song, or emotionally, I can't think of the word now. The words don't always come. The word for depressed, or, I can't think what the word is. It's not really depressed, but when you feel like almost like happily depressed, I can't think of what the word is. You know what it is. Whatever, if it touches you in such a way, like it's so draining, it's so tugged my heart, then it's a good song to you. What is this nonsense that you gotta like? A good song is factually good or not. This is factually a good song. That is not factually a good song. I don't go for that at all. And let's just finish this up with something that's important to me as well. When Matt was talking about, well, and even if it's emotionally draining or whatever, he says these young people who are watching the video and listening to the music, they're listening to this, so they have no reference points. Some of these young people weren't here when the Beatles were here, so they can't look at the Beatles and remember the Beatles like career span and feel like sentimental about it. They have no real point to gauge because they're kind of young and they weren't here when the Beatles were here, so they don't really have that start and finish to the Beatles' career. Nonsense. I'll tell you why it's nonsense, because again, if people have emotions and a heart, maybe people can relate to losing a loved one. Maybe you have a loved one who died. Maybe a 17-year-old listening to this has no reference frame for the Beatles' careers, but they remember losing a grandmother or a grandfather, and when they see the idea of I miss you in the song that says, now and then I miss you, to return, never to return to you, whatever the exact phrase was. Um, that hits them hard. They don't have to even have ever heard of the Beatles. They don't have to know the Beatles' careers, stories. They don't even have to have heard of them. They could just feel it. And yeah, I'll take one last example here. There's a song from, I think it's 1968, by Bobby Goldsboro. It's called Honey. See the tree, how big it's grown. Honey, I miss you, all that kind of stuff. That song was 6 years old when it came out. My mother bought it. I have a record. I had a record. I played the record on my record player. At 6 years old, I would cry. Honey, I miss you when I'm being good. And I'd love to be with you if only I could. It was a song about a husband whose wife had passed away, and he's reminded of her. And he's in tears. To this day, I can't listen to Bobby Goldsboro's Honey without getting tears in my eyes. It's very emotional. That song is emotional, regardless of whether I know Bobby Goldsboro, regardless of whether I know the story, the life story, career span of Bobby Goldsboro. The song itself is an emotional wallop. So much so that when I was 6 years old, when I talk about not having a reference or a time with the Beatles, I was 6 years old. I didn't know what marriage was at 6 years old. I didn't know what it was like to be married to a wife. I didn't know what death was. At 6 years old, I don't think anybody died that I knew of. I had no idea what the song Honey was really about. All I knew it was a very emotionally tugging song. And even at the age of 6, and to this day, it touched me. So you don't have to be invested in the Beatles' career to feel emotional. Otherwise, it's crocodile tears. Hogwash. Anyway, thanks for the dialogue, Matt.